Oh, I didn't see you there. We've got a lot to do today, so you better buckle in.
Are you stressed? Is structured education too much for you? Is the needless slaughter of thousands and the tension between warring states just not your stuff?
Zhang Zhao Qin Hong Mao Zedong. Wait, I don't know if the videos go through.
Today we are taking a look at Latin America from 1900 to the present. We're going to see processes of democratization and de-democratization, as well as many Cold War hotspots that unfolded in Central and South America during the time period. Now, why is it important to study contemporary Latin American history? Well, last year, when aid was cut to Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala, this was the headline. You're all very intelligent people. I don't need to explain that further. So here we're going to start on page 34 with a little bit of context. Where you see context at the top, that's where these notes will go. Basically, we left off looking at independence movements led by revolutionaries like Miguel Hidalgo, Simón Bolívar, and José de San Martín throughout Central and South America in the beginning of the 1800s. So at the end of this revolutionary period, we see many new democracies being established. Now, some of these, such as Bolivar's Gran Colombia that were established, were very short-lived, but the collapse of those large land-based empires did lead to the development of new independent states like Venezuela, Ecuador, Colombia, and Panama, which really sets the scene for the 20th century as we have all of these new independent nations democratizing, and then later in the period, de-democratizing. So, to learn a little bit more about the collapse of that Gran Colombia that Bolivar established upon liberating the territory from the Spanish Empire, read page 34 and answer the question at the bottom. Once that's answered, we're going to start to take a look at the process of democratization and de-democratization through several case studies. The first case study for the question up at the top is Brazil. You're going to use the document called Why Were Military Regimes Successful to read about what happened in Brazil in 1984 when their military government, which was in place for most of the 20th century, was called into question. You'll read through some of the different perspectives that Brazilians had on their military government to understand why military regimes were so appealing to people living in developing nations throughout the 20th century, like Brazil, others throughout Latin America, and others throughout Africa and the Middle East as well. So take a moment to use those documents to answer the question up at the top of page 35. Once you've done that, each group member will take a different case study in this document called Democratization. Each page is a different case study. Complete your row and share. One very important thing to consider when we look at the process of democratization, particularly at the beginning of the 20th century in Latin America, is the role women played in these movements. So take a moment to read through documents 1 through 9, group them like you know how to do, and write a thesis statement. You also have an option to take a look at this extension. If you're interested, there's a link here for 10 intriguing female revolutionaries, many of which are alluded to in the documents. They're not mentioned by name, but one of the women involved, for instance, in this Mexican Revolution is featured, and you can learn a little bit more about her. Hey, welcome to my neighborhood. Isn't it just gorgeous? Gorgeous. So, question of the day for your parents is about where they lived before you came around. Their favorite place or neighborhood. Just a little bit about them before you.